Oh, lately it's good.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of Monday, September 2. I ask all who have not signed in.
All cell phones and other electronic devices, please turn on your microphone, Mr. Marin, as well, and please conduct any private conversations in the hallway or outside. Emergency exits can be found to your right and to your left. This meeting is also live streamed via YouTube with text commenting available. If now you please rise and join us in a salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome and good evening. First order of business, I want to declare Councilman Kohovic necessarily absent this evening. And as we do on the second meeting of every month, we like to identify our employees who are celebrating birthdays in the upcoming month. So we have 4 employees that will be celebrating birthday in the month of October. Adam Blank on the 2nd, Tina Kolachik on the 10th, Terry Bolt on the 14th, and His Honorable William Coker on the 24th. In addition, on Monday, October 11th, Town Hall will be closed. All town operations will be closed, and our next regular scheduled town board meeting will be on October 11th.
So we closed on the 10th.
Close on the 10th, thank you. In addition, I know we have early voting that actually starts later in the month, as well. It starts on the 29th. So, thank you. Moving to approval of meeting minutes. So board members, we have the regular town board meeting of September the 12th. And then there are 2 workshops. One was the August 29th and another one was September the 6th. Why don't we look for possible approval of the September 12th meeting minutes?
I'll move that we accept that.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And the 2 workshops, August 29th and September the 6th. A motion to approve those meeting minutes.
So moved.
I'll second those.
I wasn't here on the 29th, so I have to abstain from that, but I'll certainly vote on the 6th.
6th.
And forgive me, Supervisor, I believe I'm just looking back on my schedule, I'm trying to,
I think you're just the opposite.
yes, I'm, okay.
Okay, so altogether, I think we have 2 abstentions and 3 yeas on the, okay, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Have all that, Karen?
I have
I know you do. Okay. I ask our clerk to please introduce manifest number 18 this evening.
Manifest 18 for 2022 in the amount of $323,060.27 has been reviewed by the Victor Town Board with the following accounts charged: General Townwide, General Outside Village, Highway Townwide. The lighting districts of Fishers, Brookwood Meadows, High Point, Cobblestone, Coil Ridge, Rolling Meadows, Stone Lay, and Legacy at the Fairways, S&S Consolidated Sewer Fund, and Trust and Agency.
Thank you, Karen. On the screen, you'll see identified are expenditures that are in the range of or exceed $5,000. We'll start with payment number 1 to Alliance Door. Number 2 is the October rent for the courts facility. Number 3, October rent for recreational facility. 4 is payment to Guardian for September and October dental insurance. Next is payment to Labella Associates. There are chargebacks to developers included in this. Total final cost to the town, $38,915. Next is payment to Lehigh Hanson for reprofiling several town roads. Next is Macedon Excavating and Paving. This is the finishing up of the Raccoon Run and Deer Crossing paving project. Next, payment to MVP October Healthcare. Payment to NOCO Energy diesel fuel purchase for August and September. Payment to RG&E for September utilities, and then payment to Victor Central Schools for taxes and the Parks and Rec facility. Total of the above-mentioned expenditures is $282,537.30. Total town expenditures minus these previous mentioned expenditures equals $40,522.97. Town board members, any questions on this evening's abstract number 18? Hearing no question, entertain a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Payments.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Manifest number 18 has been paid. Okay, privilege of the floor. We'll start with BME Associates. Link. Rock is back with us. And board members, you should have received some correspondence from our recreation director.
Yep,
Okay,
and we got the new map as well.
okay. Link, I do appreciate you and Jerry circling back with Brian as well.
Okay. Excuse me. Good evening, Link Sweet Rock with BME. Jerry Watkins is here with BRW of Greece LLC with me tonight. So after the last meeting, we discussed the open space area where the parking area is adjacent to the Lehigh Trail. We had showed a bigger area there, and after discussions with the town board and input, you guys wanted to shrink that area and increase the 2 lots. So basically what we did is we are showing that in orange there. It's about an acre that would go to the town for your dedication around that parking area adjacent to the Lehigh Trail. And then we increased the 2 lots to include the pond area. The access drive will be on lot 45, and then we increased lot 46 all the way to back up basically to the town's land there. So, and then we sent it to Brian for his review, and I believe he's all set with it. So I think we have addressed what you guys were looking for. So we're just back tonight to get your A-OK, and then we're back to the planning board tomorrow.
I have no issues with this.
No issues.
Yeah, I appreciate you making the changes, and I think that's going to be certainly a benefit to the town to have that, so thank you.
Okay. All set?
Good to go?
Thank you.
All right, sure,
I know.
thank you.
You came back for this, but it was important that you reconnected Brian and come back. Okay. Next, we have Robert Kane, CSD Housing. Probably won't go that quickly. Especially because you got Peter Vars there and probably got
I
a,
knew that.
and,
Well, good evening. So my name's Robert Kane with CSD Housing. We are development and developers and development consultants based just down the road in Bushels Basin. We are currently working on a development concept on Route 96, as you can see here with the chart, Victoria Lane. We are multifamily developers and development consultants, as I previously mentioned. A little bit of geographic reach to give you a little context. We work with partners across the entire state, Long Island, New York City, Mid-Hudson, Capital Region, so on and so forth. In the Finger Lakes region, CSD Housing owns 270 on East, one of the new inner loop properties in the city of Rochester. So a little historical context on this property. As you may know, it was previously listed by Pyramid. It was a listed property for sale. We took a look at the comprehensive plan, the zoning map, looked at some of the adjacencies in the area, pulled a market study on the property to look at the demand for more rental housing in the area. And we came back with what we think are favorable results. So tonight I am accompanied by Peter Vars with BME, Mike Seaman with Krista Construction, and Pete Wayner with Passer Associates. So we're working through a concept, and we very much would like your feedback as we continue working through that concept. Peter, do you want to take it away for a little bit? Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Good evening. My name is Peter Vars with BME Associates, and what I'll do is walk you through, at that 30,000-foot view, the concept plan and the purpose of the application as it relates to a potential rezoning action. So as Rob mentioned, they are proposing a multifamily residential project. The property is about 17.4 acres, and just to orient everybody, it's located on the north side of Route 96. It's bounded to the west by Victoria Lane and to the north and the east by Heathrow. And it occupies about 1,300 lineal feet of frontage along Route 96, which forms its southern boundary. The property is located across the street from the Phoenix Mills Plaza, Van Bortle Subaru, so I think we're all familiar with where it is. The property is currently vacant and it is zoned for commercial. CSD Housing is proposing up to 200 multifamily units in a mix, as a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units that would be proposed in several buildings on the site. 2 types of housing actually being proposed here. One, as you can see in the lower left-hand corner, I guess I would call it, of the plan, is a single building that could be up to 3 stories in height and would contain up to 80 units. The remainder of the residential units would be provided in multiple 2-story, what we call walk-up townhouse units that would contain 4 to 6 units per building. The conceptual site plan that you see on the screens and was handed, provided to you in the application materials and on the rendering, is provided to illustrate a probable layout for the proposed project. Access to the property would be from Victoria Lane and Heathrow. We're not proposing or anticipating the need for any direct access to New York State Route 96 with this project. The property is served by public water and public sewer, but we also are aware of the ongoing capacity study that Labella Associates has undertaken specific to this area and ultimately would affect any development of this property. As you can see on the concept plan, there's ample green space being provided within this development for both passive and active recreation spaces, including resident amenities that would serve the residents of this development. That is something that's very important to CSD Housing and can be found in a lot of their projects. Pedestrian circulation is also very important, both internally and externally. Pedestrian routes would be provided to allow internal pedestrian mobility within the project, but also with connections to sidewalks on Heathrow and Victoria Lane to extend that pedestrian mobility. Parking would be provided as surface parking on the project and would be provided at a ratio of 2 spaces per unit. This plan, as you see it, provides a building lot coverage at around 10% and a green space of around 40%. This proposal, and it's the main reason we're here this evening, would require rezoning from the town board. The intent would be to submit an application for a rezoning for a PDD, a Planned Development District. And thus, one of the goals this evening is for us to solicit feedback from this board as it relates to potential issues for us to address and to understand your current thoughts and support for a project of this type on this property. If the project is to be developed in the 150 to 200 unit range, so that would result in a density of anywhere from 9 to 11.5 units per acre. Back on September 6th, our design team did meet. We did conduct or hold a pre-application conference with the town of Victor, and during that process, we did get that process did its job in identifying key issues for us that would be addressed in any application that would be submitted on this property, ranging from traffic, sewer capacity, the seeker process, the fact that the property is located within the Route 96 251 overlay district and everything that comes with that, along with the 11 criteria that any PDD application would have to address as identified within the code. My point with kind of outlining that is we're fully aware and understand what those requirements would be, and we would provide that information in the actual formal rezoning application to this board. The key for CSD housing that Rob touched on very briefly was the fact that this proposal does look at establishing a multifamily residential use via infill development. And that's what this really is. Infill development is supported by the town comprehensive plan as it relates to higher density residential uses. As in that plan, if you go and look at the future land use plan and under key findings in section 8.8, it speaks specifically to establish higher density residential uses through infill development. And this parcel that we're talking about, this 17.4 acre parcel, is ripe for infill development. It is an isolated, commercially zoned property. It is surrounded to the west, to the north, and to the east by multiple dwelling, multiple family uses from McMahon Road to the west, to the town line, the Farmington town line, to the east. And all of those lands surrounding this parcel, north of Route 96, are currently zoned MD, multiple dwelling units. The applicant is in the process of obtaining contact information for the homeowners associations that are in those existing developments, and it is their intent to engage in an outreach with those HOAs if there is support put forward that for such a rezoning application. The point being is CSD Housing has a very good track record of engaging their neighbors as part of a planning and development process. So with that being said, as I mentioned earlier, our goal here, myself, Rob, we have the architect with us and the construction manager, is to solicit feedback, hear your initial thoughts on this, things that we can take away so that we can consider in preparing a formal rezoning application for this property.
Thank you, Peter. So board members, as Peter mentioned, we did meet on September the 6th, and the same team that Robert introduced earlier, Wes Petty and I met with Keith, Lisa Belton from the Planning and Building Department, and Kim Kinsella as well. And we talked about a number of things. So the townhouses, just for the record and for the board members as well, so they're all 2 stories, which is certainly mirrors the townhouses that are behind there. No garages and street parking lots as.
That is correct.
Okay. You mentioned the traffic, because the traffic was something I brought up. Concerns even myself when I've tried to exit either left or right out of the, we'll call it the Auto Tomatoes Plaza there. Sometimes can be a bit challenging, so anticipate that the applicant would have to do some type of traffic study as well. I was very honest, and I do see, so I have to commend the placement of the apartments, because I had concerns about anything consideration for the 3-story from a visual from those folks behind there, but you have moved that up, and it's not sitting right on Route 96, so that's something that, I appreciate you moving it around. But I do want to hear, certainly from the board members, if they have initial thoughts, if there's some additional information you would need prior to providing some direction here.
I have just, I guess, a few questions, or maybe more so comments. And from my understanding, I've been on the board about 3 years now. It looks like the projects that are successfully developed in the 3-story range, certainly have the visual appeal from the road, where they're either not visible from the primary roadway, or there's a limited view to that. And you think of like the Highline project, where it's not going to be visible at all from County Road 42, Valentine Woods, or the new developer for that. I believe 3 stories, but it's not really visible from Valentine Road or from Route 96. And then the High Point, business development, PDD up top, 3 and now a 4-story building up there, which you really can't identify from the primary roadway. So it seems to me that the town seems to favor these when they really are truly have a visual appeal to the primary roadway. So certainly in this case, Route 96 would be, I guess, the primary thought. And to that degree, I guess, one of, and certainly it might not be an issue, but certainly something to consider, is that Phoenix Mills Plaza sits a little bit below grade to 96. So a 3-story building closer to the Route 96 begins to appear almost possibly more like a 4-story building when you're down on that plaza. So that was maybe the first thing that came to thought. And I certainly don't know some of the discussions that I'm not well informed maybe on some of the discussions that happened so far in the planning process, or at least in the initial presentation. And it sounds like the supervisor mentioned you've moved that apartment building further back from 96 to kind of capture some of what my comments include. But I guess I wonder from the visual from 96, are there other places in the rear of the property where you could swap those, and would the visual be entirely different if it was another 100 or 150 feet back?
Sure. So what we intend to do is a couple things because of the takeaway we received at the pre-application conference. There's a couple of things. First of all, we do understand clearly the comment of the position that the town has, and you expressed it very clearly as a consistent message that we heard back on the 6th. Point being is, so what we are planning to do as part of the application process is a couple of things. One is to prepare necessary visuals or visual simulations to illustrate the relationship not only of the proposed building and its elevation to its surroundings, but as you said, to Phoenix Mills across the street, because actually this site does a similar thing. As you move north, the topography begins falling off. We also have the benefit of this property that it is somewhat heavily vegetated along the Route 96 right-of-way. So part of it will be an assessment of those, that vegetation as to its health and whatnot, such that what screening that can be provided. And then the other thing we are considering is, and the point would be, is when is the appropriate time to do it? And CSD is willing to do it sooner than later, is as necessary, engage with the town the right town staff, or right, and sounds a little weird to say it that way, but where we could get on site and actually physically, whether it's balloons or something, to illustrate building heights, and so that we can get a sense, like if you're standing in Otto Tomatoes Plaza, where is that roof line, and what does the vegetation do with screening? So point is, we're putting together a game plan to address that concern, to see if we can find a proposal that can be acceptable.
Excellent, thank you very much. And I guess I don't really truly have any more questions, but I do very much like the blended concept of the apartments with the 2-story townhomes. I think that fits the character of the town and where we're going with development. And certainly, it wasn't too many years ago, certainly before my time with the board, but it wasn't too many years ago that we really didn't have any offerings, or very, very limited offerings in the apartment space. And when we've been presented the numbers over the last few years on really the tremendous demand for this, I think these higher end apartments and rental units that meet the demand of the workforce in the Victor area, I think is helpful, and I think is mutually beneficial to the town, as so long as it's done with everything in mind. Thank you.
Okay.
Peter, you don't have architectural renderings to share with the board tonight?
Actually, that was, I'll dive on the sword for that. I wanted them to come before this board, minimizing initial costs by not going to those expenses. So certainly if there's a feeling from the board that they'd like to see more, that would be something that would request. I do want to just mention, I failed to earlier, CDC Housing is, they would be the agency. They would oversee, manage all the leases of all of these apartments. So they'd own it and then manage the leases as well.
I assume, Peter, when you submit the petition, have renderings?
Oh, yes, definitely, yes.
What's the current density if we didn't rezone?
It's zoned commercial at this time, so.
You couldn't put any residential there.
Correct.
So I know you don't have it exactly, but is there is the front level going to be at a different elevation as the townhomes, or is it going to be one level for the, upon construction? Are you look, because it does have an elevation
Yes, I was
increase
going
from
to say,
road
there's
to
an
the top, right?
elevation change through the property that we would work with. So maybe the best way to explain it is could be the finished floor elevation of those units that are out, let's put it, they're on the Route 96 side of that main east-west road we're proposing. Those likely would be at a different elevation than the units that are on the other side.
That's what I was kind of asking.
Councilman Condon, to your question, yes, it is commercial, so, it's been on the market for forever, it seems
Yeah.
like. But an exercise could be, certainly the applicant's looking for, a project up to 200 units located on these 17 acres. We could actually ask either staff or our engineer to do an analysis of 17 acres of another comparable.
Right.
Even behind here is fairly comparable, excluding, I think, the apartment concept.
But if I read this right, Peter, your proposal actually will
That is correct, because of what the commercial zone, I believe, Wes will correct me, I think if I'm wrong, I believe is a 35%
That's what
group.
it says. That's what it says.
So, yes. So this is proposed, at this point, is proposing more. What we would do that would, I think, somewhat address Mr. Condon's comment is, as part of the rezoning application, the petition, it is our standard practice that we will provide a comparison chart, for lack of a better term, of under commercial zoning, lot coverage could be this versus lot coverage proposed. Building coverage could be this versus building coverage proposed. We'd probably even do trip generations, as if this was developed as a commercial development. It would likely generate this traffic versus what is proposed. So we'll provide that comparative analysis as part of the rezoning petition.
Will you actually have a traffic study accompanying your EAF?
It is our intent to do that. What we have done since we met on the 6th of September, CSD Housing has engaged SRF Associates. They currently are working on an initial assessment. We've had discussions with follow-up discussions with staff, and the intent is to create this initial assessment and provide it to staff so that it can go to the town's traffic consultant for them to review and determine if what additional scope of a study would be required, so that study can be completed and submitted. Ontario County will be involved from county planning review, but there are no Ontario County highway permits required, so they won't necessarily have a direct traffic impact study review. We have contacted the New York State Department of Transportation, and we do have email correspondence from them that given that if access were to be from Heathrow and Victoria Lane only, they don't anticipate the need for any additional study beyond just what the trip generations would be and the distribution out of those two roadways. And we will provide that to staff as part of establishing the scope. But it is our intent that we would provide the traffic study as a supporting document to the EAF that is submitted with the application.
And you're not proposing new curb cuts on 96?
No.
That is correct.
No.
I think
That's certainly to your benefit, the no curb cuts and.
Yes.
And coming from, my full-time line of work in emergency services, certainly the egress and access points with the layout look excellent. I think, and the only thing on the traffic thing I think will be interesting, just because of the density of the apartment or residential living facilities already there, is, there is decent access, and I believe Heathrow goes over to McMahon Road, does it not? So I think you can access it from, you can basically get to it from 3 different points.
Right.
Which I think is certainly a benefit from the commuter standpoint, emergency services standpoint. But with it being residential and everything in the adjacent area there, residential, pretty high density, I'll be curious to see what they say at that morning commute time and that 4 to 5
Exactly.
o'clock time frame.
So I know this is not a public hearing, but you know what? Nothing wrong with get as many questions out, and maybe this is a question even board members have not thought of, but a resident has sent an email. Will this be a conventional multifamily housing? you know,
Does he mean market rate housing?
just reading what it says. Will this be a conventional multifamily housing? It's apartments and townhouses.
Right, and as we mentioned in our letter, they will be all rental units. And as we targeted, the target population, for lack of a better word, is workforce housing. So it's people that work at the school district, people that work for the town of Victor, that type. So it's,
All market rate housing.
The land use will be multifamily, and the target demographic is workforce, so you're looking at more of, income levels between the lower 30s to the lower 80s as a demographic, so. Can you define subsidized housing?
HUD.
No HUD financing.
So I think Councilman Cusimano, you made a good point, and Robert just mentioned that as well. Again, the workforce, an area within the town. I mean, certainly, we hear comments all the time from residents, we need more of this, we need more of that, we have too much of this. Certainly, if I look at that area, and Peter touched on it as well, as from an infill standpoint and the multi-dwelling housing all around there, if you take a look at a parcel that probably is appropriate for this type of rezone, this probably passes the smell test. Again, we have gone 3 stories in 2 other areas within the town, and both of them, we felt very, very comfortable that they were not going to have the visual impact, negative impact that we wanted. So that, for myself, speaking for myself only, that's got to be decisive. Otherwise, I'm at two stories all day. Okay? Board members, any further comments for Peter or Robert?
Thank you.
Thank you both.
thank you very much
All
for
4
your
of
time.
you, actually. Okay, Mr. Wes Petty. Update on the sewer master plan.
Good evening, board members. Wes Petty from Labella Associates. It's been quite a few months since we've been in front of you with regard to the sanitary sewer master plan. 2021 is the date that I have on the last document. You may recognize this cover here that I'm holding up in front of you. And what this is, just to clarify, it's a sanitary sewer master plan that addresses potential extensions of the consolidated sewer district in that regard. So the primary purpose of the plan is to provide guidance relative to the request to extend the Town of Victor Consolidated Sewer District by supplementing and coordinating relevant information presented in 2 documents. The Sanitary Sewer Collection System Master Plan for the Town of Farmington and the Town of Victor, otherwise known as the Farmington-Victor Sewer Study, which was completed, I think, in 2016, as well as the 2015 Comprehensive Plan for the Town of Victor, as amended. More specifically, the analysis within the plan, the sewer master plan, is intended to ensure that community planning priorities, including asset management, growth management, and the preservation of both open space and rural character, are taken into account, along with sound engineering practices and responding to requests to approve expansions of the district beyond its present boundaries. So there are several criteria that would be evaluated with regard to sewer district extensions, including engineering, the feasibility, effectiveness, and efficiency of hydraulic or environmental constraints, the fiscal impacts, or the fiscal criteria, initial costs, if applicable, and various land use and availability of alternatives analysis. So just to update you on where we are and where we've been since 2021, the Town of Victor is not standing still. So since this plan was last presented to you, we're working on updates that include the completion and the operation of the $9 million sanitary capital project. The Auburn Trail Sanitary Sewer project is sometimes how it's referred to. So the previous plan was written in a fashion that said that was a project that was kind of in process and not yet completed. So we're updating the plan in that regard just to identify that it is completed. Also, as a recommendation of that draft plan from 2021, the town has implemented that one-time charge for new connection to the consolidated sewer district, right? So the other item that we would like to include in this update that we provide to you is a bit of an assessment as to how that's working today. Because that's a new process for the town of Victor. There have been a couple of instances of zoning density changes, right, over in the eastern part of the town, specifically along East Victor Road. And private development is still occurring. In some instances, they are awaiting for pump station improvements to be able to build their projects. There are conditions placed on some approvals that the planning board has given so that those projects won't necessarily move forward until the new pump station, for example, Pump Station 7 is online in operation. And also, lastly, there are pump station improvements that are occurring now, or projects elsewhere in the town. So all of these new bullet items that I've listed off here are elements that we are updating in this draft sanitary sewer master plan that we'd like to provide to you in the next 2 weeks. And with that, I guess what I would like to ask of you is, would you like another formal presentation of the updated document when it's complete, for the public to be able to understand a little bit about what it's about and what it's intended to do for you? Another term that I might use in lieu of a master plan is it's really a reference guide, a field guide, to help the town board and planning board process requests from developers to extend the sewer district and install sanitary sewer infrastructure. So it's really a tool for you guys to use when the developer's in front of you. So that's pretty much all I have for right now. When we started to update it, we thought it was just going to be the zoning density changes, but so much has transpired since 2021. So we're implementing, we're writing some updated language and information as necessary.
I do like the guideline thought
Yeah.
process myself. And also for the board members, last week, Thursday was it, I think, the bids were open for Pump Station 7. There's reason to get a little excited. I mean, they're much better than we were previously. But right now, I know LaBella's going through and making sure all the i's are dotted, t's are crossed and whatnot, make sure that what was they bid on is what we need, and we anticipate it'll be a resolution, hopefully at the meeting on the 11th of October, if not then the second meeting in October, to award that bid to a company that we've had some past success with, so I think that's a good thing. So back guidelines, I my own preference. So, and as far as
What do you mean when you say guidelines?
guidelines for future boards that don't have all that history, but really would provide us with guidelines on points where I think you're referencing when and where areas of the sewer expansion should take place.
Yep, and it evaluates, this sewer master plan kind of evaluates what was indicated in that 2016 Farmington Victor sewer study, as well as the comprehensive plan, kind of looks at those together and identifies, well, here's the analysis of those two plans, and if you want to move forward, I guess you'll have a few strategies, or at least something that points you in the direction of.
Would the analysis include, identifying, okay, we're at pump station X and they're pretty close to build out?
Yes.
So I think is important.
Yeah, that's one of those hydraulic or environmental constraints, right? That, we got to take into account existing conditions at those pump stations.
As far as a formal presentation, if we were to go, and request a formal or agree to it, what are you seeing as a timeline for that?
For a presentation, well, if we can get a document to you within the next 2 weeks, I think that we would be well prepared to do a presentation shortly after that. Maybe once you've had the opportunity to review and digest a bit of the plan yourselves, or we can do it as an introductory for you as we, kind of hand the draft plan off to you.
I would prefer that we get the document, we have a chance, maybe a month, to look it over, digest it, look at some of the things on it, and then maybe by year's end, November, and we got to wrap up our budget, we got, other things that are pressing, and then have a pretty good idea, this pump station 7 will be awarded probably and on its way, and then I think to have Wes come back, in November or early December to kind of get us off and running for 2023 on things that we should be looking for. And, I like the concept about the capacity, because the next guy coming in, he's going to come in and say, well, we need to extend here, and we're going to need to have some, real concrete information on, well, that's going to require a brand-new pump station or whatever, those types of things. But
Oh, excellent points. Other comments?
I agree with Dave.
I agree, having the document in hand first and then looking at it. I guess, Wes, the biggest thing we would like is call it a bullet point or a warning or a star or an asterisk of, if you go beyond, this is what it's based on, but if you go beyond this, this is what you're looking at. I mean, because that's what's happened recently, is we've gone into areas that when you started the first plans and with a comp plan, they weren't going to be areas that were going to have that much capacity, and we've superseded that. So I guess
I remember when I came on the board in 16, and I think Wes was presenting the sewer master plan, and I said, well, this isn't what it's going to be, right? As we look at the growth. And Wes says, well, no, this is what it is. So this is what it is today, right now. And I think it's ever-changing, obviously, and I think those are the issues that we wrestle with, and the more information we have ahead of time, I think is better for us.
warning zone.
Okay, good. Anything else from anybody? All set?
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Wes.
you, Wes.
Thanks.
Okay, public comments and concerns. Opportunity for members of the public to offer any comments? Andrino? Okay, moving to reports of town officials, starting first in your packet, a report from the finance director. Just a note as well, next sales tax, we should, the next sales tax quarter, we should find out mid-October on that. And also in your packet, highway, IT, and I know the clerk has a few items she'd like to go over. Yep.
Sorry. Okay, I will have the tentative budget, I believe, in the next couple of days, so I think Rich is going to email a copy to each of you once I get it. So, also, I wanted to ask, I had sent an email out concerning the August 22nd meeting minutes. After they were approved, I got an email from Cheryl Jones-Richter, and she wanted me to change something I had put in there, that she is in support of ensuring that the town strongly considers not tearing up the rails, because the word "not" was not in there. So she wanted me to put that in there. Does the board have any objection to that?
I have no objections.
Objection.
Okay. Also, I wanted to give an update on the painting. I wanted to say thank you to Rich. He's been very supportive and backing me up, because it was a little stressful trying to pick out colors, trying to decide. And the painting was done by Wade Granger. He's a Victor graduate. He graduated in 2004. He owns Red Truck Painting. He did an awesome job so far. We've done the hallways in the town hall and the main meeting room, and he did one room upstairs, so he'll continue on, but he's done a wonderful job for us. So I just wanted to mention that, so that's it.
Thank you very, Karen.
Nice job with the color selections, Rich. That looks good, so. I know. I know.
This is a very common color.
It is, it looks
All
good.
quiet moments.
Well, and they also,
We need that in this room.
not only is it nice to have somebody local do it, but they also were very accommodating. I've been in and out of the town hall quite a bit in the last couple of weeks, and, super accommodating in terms of being cognizant of people moving around the building and just being very careful, and, really a very professional job that they're doing, so, looks great.
Yep, could have used this color a few times in the past. Let's see, a couple items real quick. Victor Robotics Recycling Drive event is October 1st, 9 to 1 this coming Saturday, so just a reminder. And the Town of Victor, our Wellness Committee, is having a health and wellness fair, and this will be on Wednesday, October 19th, from 9 to 1. Victor Town Hall, right here, main meeting room, and it is opened to the public as well, so. Good. Yep. Great job by our Wellness Committee doing this. Board members, I did provide you with the joint Farmington-Victor meeting minutes from the joint meeting back on September the 13th, as well as the August Victor-Farmington ambulance report, and that's all I have. Board members, you care to report on any committee you're involved with? Hearing none, we will move to the resolutions. Starting with resolution number 1 from the Highway Department, the Ontario County Municipal Snow and Ice Agreement. And I do want to thank our Highway Superintendent and the other members of the Highway Association for working on behalf of all the communities to get some more money from the county.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Supervisor Marin, can I talk about resolution number 2 before we vote on it or move on it? I would like to table it as opposed to voting no on it tonight. And the reason for that, and these are my questions, I didn't have a chance to talk to Babette, and I apologize about that, but I know that we've done a survey of historical buildings and structures over 50 years of age. I know that we've already done that. My other issue is, okay, we want to spend $16,000 to the Landmark Society of Western New York to find these historical barns that we have in our town, which we know where most of them are. My question then becomes, what do we do with that information? Are we going to help those property owners preserve those barns? Are we going to throw money at those property owners to protect those barns? Councilman Guinan and I were talking about, we grew up in this town. We love historical barns. We love it when we see people preserving historical barns. But frankly, driving the tractor in on the second floor with a hay wagon is not as conducive anymore, as the equipment is bigger and heavier, and frankly, a lot of the barns that are falling into disrepair, it's cheaper, frankly, to tear it down, dispose of it, and put up a pole barn, if you're gonna use it for storage, if you're gonna use it for equipment. So, it's not that I don't cherish those barns, but I'm even sitting in a personal circumstance in which the price to fix it is not going to happen. The price to fix it and maintain it is not going to happen. And so I just don't know what we would do with this data that we don't already sort of have. And I just want to get more information from Babette. And I just, right now, if someone were to move on this and second it, I think I would vote no. And I would rather give Babette the chance to defend it first before I say no. I might say no anyway, but that's just my thought. And
I too, Jack, if I could, greatly respect everything Babette does, and I have the utmost respect for, and could probably tell you who originated most of the barns in town by driving around. But what do we accomplish by a $16,000 expenditure? At the last time we took the same account of all the barns, they were a lot of them were still owned by the original families, and more than half of them are no longer owned by the original families, and the people that could afford to preserve them just as a barn, but for usage, it's beyond the ability for most people to, almost everyone in town that's good, that's still standing or had money put into it, is going to be a wedding venue of some kind. So I'd love it from a preservation standpoint to see it, but $16,000, I just would like to know from Babette, if we'd spent it and we know what everything is, what do we get for our $16,000 that we don't already know? We took place with our barns on both families and several barns on our road between Dillman's and all of us, the same thing. When the county had a program for, you could get some money to redo barns, and a couple people did it. And the two barns that we had at the time, and we no longer have, failed muster to get grant money to help do the restorations at that time. And I think it's gotten worse since then. So, like Dave, I greatly respect the thought of it, but just for $16,000, I'd know, once we had that information, what would we do with it? You know, that was the big thing for me.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
If I certainly can't speak to all of the points that I'm sure Babette would make, and I guess from hearing two folks saying they'd like to hear more, I think we should hear more. I believe I can speak to maybe one of the points that we've discussed at one of the most recent historical advisory meetings. In that, and I believe if I'm correct, the barn that stands on Valentine Road, where the new small subdivision is located just east of where the High Point Drive comes down. I believe there was discussion at the ZBA over the last, I believe earlier in the first half of this year, that essentially discussed, well, should it just be ripped down and they can develop the homes? And that brought the whole discussion of Babette and her folks being involved in that discussion. So I think that maybe was one of the trigger points for this. I could be wrong. And I think one of her intentions certainly is to have a very comprehensive list of what barns are truly important to our town, and what barns could we let go of because they're in disrepair, et cetera. So certainly I'm not trying to sway one side or the other, but I think it's just to develop a catalog of what's really important historically, so that when we look at future subdivisions or future commercial residential developments, we kind of know what we can let go and what we should fight hard from the historical side to keep. So I know that was one of their questions. But again, the $16,000, it's certainly a lot of money to spend on looking at barns. But I believe that was one of the trigger points for why this moved forward on their end.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that feedback. I know some great points by both Councilman Condon and Councilman Guinan. And I think at the end of the day, what's the end game? I mean, you made a few points, so it sounds like, okay, once we do this, enter into a contract with them, and we gather this data, so is the next step asking this board to do some kind of preservation so that these aren't torn down? But to Councilman Condon's point, who's got the money to restore them? They're knocking them down, taking that footprint and putting up in a pole barn. Really, financially makes better sense. But Councilman Condon, you've offered, if you'd be so kind, have a conversation with her, and maybe ask her, it's in her best interest, two things: pursue grants, and number two, come before the board and ask.
Yeah, I'll follow up with her.
Okay.
Mr. Supervisor, was there actually a contract presented to you to consider, or?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the resolution references a contract.
So, Resolution 2, tabled. Number 3, standard workday and reporting resolution for elected and appointed officials. This is an annual resolution.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 4, Town of Victor video conferencing policy and procedure. It does list, you've had it all broken down here before you, what the process is. And unfortunately, Councilman Kohovic certainly going away on vacation. It was in his best interest. I mean, his originally thoughts were he was going to zoom in this evening, but after reading the policy, he said, well, I guess I won't be doing that, so.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Number 4 is passed. Number 5, next few are out of Parks and Rec. This is a request for a certificate of liability insurance. And again, we have 2 vendors, Mark Russ and OTBI Entertainment.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 6, agreement with Mark Rust.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 7, agreement with OTBI Entertainment Group.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 8, this is a Belton Park contract. Again, this will be shared. Of course, our share is much larger, but it'll be shared with the other 2 communities as well. This is more of the efforts, and it's outlined here in this resolution as well. The Committee of 6, as we've been named, working to move forward with the dam.
I'd make a motion on that, and I'd like to add that I think that the committee's done a really good job in terms of finding out where we are, where we need to go, how we're going to get there in a prudent way, and keeping a top priority of trying to maintain what we have and public safety. Those are the 2 issues, and that's driving us and driving our decisions with Gomez and Sullivan, and Mr. Harmon from West Bloomfield has been a good liaison, and in addition, helping us out. Even though their piece of the pie is small, he's carrying a good share of the load in the communication with Gomez and Sullivan, and we appreciate that.
No, thank you, Councilman Connie. You made 2 very, very good points, and we have to admit the other 2 communities support the public safety aspect. We look where the dam is and where the potential, certainly catastrophic situation could occur within our town, but they're very supportive of that. And then certainly trying to maintain what we have up there, so.
Yep.
Well
I'll
said.
second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, resolution is approved. Number 9, setting the public hearing to establish the Fairways Phase 3 Lighting District. Again, this would be at the next town board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 10, authorizing the adoption of the Victor Town Board of the Local Law Number 6, 2022, to expand the use of video conferencing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Resolution is approved. Number 11, letter of credit, Southgate Hills 2, utility only. This is release number 2 here.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Resolution is approved. Moving again to public comments, an opportunity for members of the public care to address the town board. Ms. Mandrino. Nope, we have David. David is coming to the podium.
coming
He's
up.
down. He's taking the mask
I'm
off
gonna
as
save the
well.
day here. Yes, participation, right? 2 things. One, the barns. I drive around also, just like all of you do, and you know better than I do. What constitutes a barn? I'm just curious. I see barns that some might call a barn, and I call it a shed. How many really large barns, I mean, multi-story, something like 40, 50 foot wide or square, exist in the town? I don't see that many.
More than you think.
More than you think, and a lot of them are the old gamble roof barns, the
Yeah.
ones that Farmington has a lot of them that they use, and a lot of them were built by the Quakers, and they did preserve them, and they're in a landmark zone. These are not, they're historical buildings that they really have tried to preserve and kept and set forth. Ours are, I don't think we have any that are actually in a historical district like they would have in other
No.
towns. And it's mostly the 50-year and older, the older wooden structure barn, gamble roof barn, some that have
Right.
history that were built like that.
But
Might notice the one at the end of Belton Hill Road in 332, which was a Quaker-built barn that, to preserve it, and that was a historical building that they made it into a bank, but had to keep the structure of the house and the barn behind it, and so, but ours aren't like those are, and they do have in other towns, some that are in the National Registry, but ours are not, but that's the difference.
But like the size of on Valentine Road, in High Street, I mean, that's what I would consider a large barn worth, preserving if you could. But there are lots that are very small and not worth probably saving.
Right.
You would want to, I guess, have an idea of, what you're looking for to save. It might not be so expensive then to do a survey.
I-
Another question, if I may. Oh, we have a master plan in our town. And Wes, when you do your survey or your presentation, and to direct expansion of the sewer district, perhaps, how do you base it? How do you judge how the capacity of a sewer when right now in a master plan? I mean, some places you have, okay, on this parcel, it's, one house every 3 acres. And a builder comes before you later on and says, well, I would like to have clustering, and I would have half, 50-50, and I want more. I will build, instead of a possibility of, let's just say, 25 homes, I want to put in 75 homes. How do you judge how to build a sewer, expanded a sewer for something like that? Because many times you just don't, you override your master plan. You don't, go by the boundaries of that plan.
Well, I'm not the engineer, and Wes can answer it, but I think what happens is it's a moving target, right?
Really?
I mean, your sewer district is a moving target. And what the board relies on is Labella's expertise to look at what the capacity is, right? There's excess capacity, there's capacity, and then we find out that this pump station is at capacity and it can't handle anymore. So that gets built into the cost, passed on to the developer, 90% of the time, when they do that, when they expand that. But, they measure those flow rates and they look at all that. The hard part for us as a board, I think, Dave, is that we're dealing with an owner-operator, Farmington Sewer and Water, which is saying, sure, bring it on,
Right,
more the
money for
merrier
that,
for
right.
them. So we're stuck sometimes trying to balance that, and, it's an ever-changing target.
I'm sorry.
It seems like Wes has a really
Well,
difficult time.
the other thing, Dave, just so you know, when they started the comp plan in the mid-2000s, and all of the people put on paper what they called build-out. So they had here we are now, and here's where we think we'll be in year whatever, and you try and compute a rate, and we've, it's moved up and down a little bit, but the scale recently has really exceeded. And then we contracted with Farmington, and now it's even more, and now we've got 2, and I think we're speeding past what our rate was of what it was established 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's up to Wes to say, okay, now you guys got to really step it up a little bit, step up your game a little bit, and that's what we're doing, so.
Well, super. Thank you all. Thank you. Oh, and my name is Dave Nankin at Shasta Drive.
We
Excuse
don't
me.
know who you are.
Wait for the records. Thank you. I'm sorry. I should know by now.
Dave, thanks for the question. Just a brief overview of, I guess, the comprehensive plan and the planning process for potential district extensions. The comprehensive plan, as it was adopted, identified a future land use map, conceptual level future land use, including potential density changes. So as that plan was, I think it was initially adopted in 2014, most recent amendment may have been 2015, it identifies portions of the town where maybe the town board would expect to potentially entertain a district extension, but doesn't go so far as to say this is exactly where the limit of the sewer district, of the future sewer district will be. But it does identify potential areas where the town board would entertain that. So, and yeah, it's a moving target, right? Depending on what a developer is looking to do, and we've talked about transfer of development rights in the past, and so it's a complicated answer to what seems like a very simple question and concern. So.
Thank you, Wes. There's no other public comment. Entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.